Well, hello there, my happy little ramblers, and welcome to Reese Rambles once more. Another week, 49, ramble number 49. This is 49 weeks in a row. Isn't that fantastic? That's quite the achievement. Not long now until the full year, in fact, a full 1 year streak. That's I'm not quite sure how we're going to celebrate that, but I'm sure I'll think of something. But yeah, Reese Rambles, the official podcast of Control-Alt-Reese. How are you all doing? Welcome to the weekend. I know quite a few of you people have told me that this has become an important part of your weekend routine, your Friday night routine and Saturday morning. So I'm really glad to be a part of that and very grateful for that. So thank you. That's very nice of you to listen to my ramblings on a weekly basis. Very good of you. This is actually take 2 of this ramble. I won't go into the reasons why I'm doing it all again, but the first one didn't come out quite how I wanted it. So there we go. Let's rattle through. And the first thing I wanted to talk about is actually a bit of an apology. And I know, serious stuff. Because I've said some regrettable things in a recent instalment of this podcast, and I just wanted to clear things up really with my listeners and just kind of offer a very heartfelt and sincere apology to them. So yeah, here goes. Bingo isn't just for old people. All right, I know. I said that last week. I may have heavily implied that bingo was an old people's pastime. Of course it isn't. It's had a big resurgence in recent years, and a lot of younger people are enjoying the old British tradition of bingo. I think it's also spread beyond our shores to other countries, but I've always thought of it as a particularly British thing. But yeah, apparently people got offended that I said that bingo was an old people's game. So apologies for that. That was very rude of me to say. So there we go. With that cleared up, I suppose we should just elaborate a little bit more on the world of meat bingo, which is what, of course, prompted this whole conversation in the first place. If you went around last week, my wife and I drive past a village hall on a regular basis that has a sign outside that says meat bingo. Tonight at 7 p.m, I think it says. And we were kind of just pondering the very nature of meat bingo and what it was. And of course, it's bingo and you win prizes of meat. It's not complicated. And a few people have got in touch, just sharing their experiences with the world of meaty prizes, particularly meat raffles, which is another one that I hadn't come across. But apparently it's really big. It's a really big thing in the UK. And if you're familiar with the concept of a raffle, which is basically where you buy a ticket and then if your number comes up, you win a prize, it's that, but with meat. Prizes of meat, which of course is a fantastic thing. As always, also someone else mentioned meat sellers at car boot sales. Of course, a car boot sale, another big British cultural phenomenon where everyone pulls up their cars into a big field every Sunday morning at some ungodly hour, which is why I haven't been to one for a very long time because I don't get up early on Sundays. And they sell off all their old tat for next to nothing, and a very big British institution. You've probably seen some of Nostalgia Nerds videos on that, maybe. But yeah, they have people in vans selling meat at car boot sales. And my wife, I actually mentioned this to Catherine, and of course she works in the world of meat production. And she said that obviously her company, I do work for this company as well as a contractor, but not that's important. I always have to mention that. But she said that her company provide all the big supermarkets, so Tesco and Sainsbury's and Aldi, and that these supermarkets have requirements on the stock that they will accept from them, in their case, bacon. And of course, if the bacon has too short of a date on it, of course it takes the supermarkets a certain amount of time to sort of get the stuff through their distribution and out onto the shelves, and then customers need a certain amount of time to obviously buy it and take it home and store it and cook it and whatever else. So the part of the specification is that it has to have 3 weeks worth of shelf life on it. And you'd think that actually they'd just be a bit sneaky and just sort of change the dates, but they don't. It's all it's full traceability all the way back to the farm, from the farm to the shelf kind of thing. That's actually the system that I work on. It kind of deals with all of that stuff. And if there are less than 3 weeks worth of shelf life on the bacon, then the supermarkets refuse to accept it. And there are companies that are actually specifically set up to take this shorter shelf life meat and pass it on in other ways and put it through their own distribution network. And part of that is it going to these sellers that do these meat bingo things and meat raffles and meat car boot stands and all the rest of it. So yeah, that is the meaty distribution network that leads to these meaty prizes. And indeed, outside of the UK, apparently Meat Bingo is a thing in America. I did find some evidence of that actually after I recorded last week's episode when I was looking for something to put in the thumbnail, and there was one that was being run by like a radio station in America somewhere, which was quite interesting. And I've also had a Canadian point out that a meat shoot is a thing. Not like a shoot, like a CHUTE, but a shoot, SHOOT, with guns. Yeah, apparently it's a target shooting thing, and you shoot at the targets, and the person who scores the most points by being the most accurate and shooting the most targets wins prizes of meat. So a meat shoot. Now that is a new one on me. I don't know if anyone else has come across that one, but hopefully that's all the meaty bases covered, as well as the apology for the bingo lovers in the audience. And I think to repent for that sin, I might have to go and play a game of bingo down at the local gala with all the other young'uns, as we all are nowadays. So that's that, and I think let's move swiftly on to our first topic of the week. So many of you out there will be listening on Spotify, of course, and that is indeed the platform that I use to upload these as well. It used to be Anchor FM, and then it was acquired by Spotify, and they turned it into Spotify for podcasters. And then I basically export just the audio from these and upload it there, and it gets pushed out to Apple Music and Google Podcasts and a few other platforms that I don't even know the names of. But all good stuff. And one thing that it always asks me when I upload them is, do I want a user poll? Do I want user feedback on this episode? I always completely ignore the option. I just leave it on, which is the default. I didn't realise that people could send me messages through it, and someone's actually done that this week, which is actually quite cool. So I'm going to leave it on, and I'm actually going to encourage people to use it if you want to sort of comment on things. Because I listen to podcasts on Spotify constantly, and I had no idea that this was a thing. But someone's actually used it to send some feedback, and it's very good feedback. It's a really good update on a story that I covered last week. So let's just elaborate on that a little bit further. And this is from Mike Mimo. And Mike says, is the RM800XL dead? There was a C&D in April 23, but in December, the group posted a video of the prototype firing into life for the first time. And I was completely unaware of this, and I was really interested to go and check this out. And if you're not familiar with the RM800XL, which Mike is talking about, I will just briefly cover that again. So it was an attempt to recreate the Atari 800XL made by a group from Poland called Revive Machines, and it looked really, really cool. I don't know if these are pictures of an actual finished unit on the website. They're probably just renders. I did have some other feedback from people, because I'd kind of said that it was all ready for production, and I did have some feedback from some other people saying that it was all just a pipe dream, and actually they hadn't really achieved anything. It turns out we were both wrong, and actually they are still working on it. And this seems quite risky, but there we go. So there is a video. It's a 17-second long video on their official YouTube channel. It's called RM800XL. It's alive, and it shows a prototype. It looks like maybe quite a final-looking motherboard plugged into a monitor, and someone switches the power switch on the side, and it boots up, I guess, where it kind of loads up like a test pattern on the screen. And then, it just ends on coming soon, a very ominous looking message that's kind of fading in and zooming at the bottom of the screen, which is really exciting on the one hand. But on the other hand, of course, they had this cease and desist, and they were supposed to stop this project from Retro Games Limited, who are, of course, making the new Atari 400 Mini. Obviously, there's a bit of a conflict of interest there, and they've got the contract with Atari to make the 8-bit machines, the modern recreations of the 8-bit machines. So, of course, they'd want to stop a competing project, even though I don't necessarily agree with the heavy-handed tactics and stuff. But there we go. It's a thing. But yeah, it seems the project isn't actually dead, and they are still actively developing this thing, which is really interesting. But yeah, the other interesting part being the feedback from Spotify, which of course I didn't even know was a thing. And also that raises another topic, which I kind of wanted to talk about, which this segues into quite nicely. So let's talk about that as well. So if you cast your mind back to last week's Ramble, I know it seems like a very long time ago now, but Yeah, at the end of that, I mentioned that I had to rush off to take my car for its MOT, which of course is the annual safety check thing that we do here in the UK every year. And I did speculate that it was going to probably fail because it's quite old and it's got lots of miles on the clock and all of that. And to cut a very long story short, it did fail and it needs some work to get it through that. Just a new rear coil spring, which I wasn't expecting. Apparently it's cracked, but it doesn't seem to affect the handling or anything, which is a bit odd, but there you go. And more importantly, 2 new front tyres. Apparently the tread is quite low on those, and I'm just going to get those done because it's quite icy and horrible out for the next, at least the next few weeks, and I don't want to be driving around on sort of nearly bald tyres and end up in a ditch. So, yeah, that's the thing. But that's the reason I had to rush off and get everything wrapped up very quickly last week, and why I actually missed this story. And you'll see how it relates to the previous one in a second, because this was on my list, and I really wanted to talk about this, but I wanted to sort of speculate and go into a bit more detail. So I decided to put it on hold and just wait until this week, as there was plenty of other Atari stuff to cover. But now is the time. And I'm hoping to get another video recorded while I'm here today, just talking about all of these new Atari machines and what they are and how they all kind of fit into the grand scheme of things, because there's so many of them now. Even I'm struggling to keep up, and I'm a massive Atari fanboy. And I know a lot of people come here to learn the latest Atari news and whatnot. So, I'm going to try and see if I can sort of do a bit of a roundup in a video and make sense of it all. But the other new Atari that I'm talking about is, of course, or perhaps not, of course, the Atari Game Station Portable. Now, this was revealed at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, which was just a few weeks ago, and it's made by a company called My Arcade, who've worked with Atari in the past on other machines, particularly handhelds and things. They've done licensed handhelds for things like Tetris and Pac-Man and stuff as well. Quite big in that world, and from what I gather, make quite decent quality hardware, so that's good to hear. But this thing is really weird. So this has a built-in paddle and trackball controllers, as Time Extension are reporting here. But also, the other thing that I've spotted is that it has a numeric keypad on the front as well. Something that the Atari Jaguar was kind of mocked for back in the day. But yeah, of course, the 5200 had the keypad controller, as did the Jaguar. And of course, the 2600, there were some keypad controllers available for that console as well. So quite a wide range of Atari games actually support that, and perhaps not such a silly thing to include after all. But yeah, the big headlines around this, of course, focus on the paddle and the trackball. The paddle, of course, rotary spinner type controller. Back in the day, it was quite common. Of course, Atari's very first arcade game was Pong, or at least the first game released under the Atari brand was Pong back in 1972. That, of course, had the 2 rotary controllers. And with all the table tennis and hockey and football clone machines that came out that were essentially exactly the same game, of course, they all used spinner controllers because they worked really well for that style of game. And then we had some later stuff like Tempest and stuff like that. And even driving games, of course, you can use the rotary controller as like a spinning wheel, a steering wheel. As a spinner, a kind of analog positional controller. They work really well for that. So quite a cool controller, and a control scheme that's kind of fallen out of fashion with recent consoles and things. It's not something you see anymore, which is, I guess it's to be expected because it does have quite limited use, and it's not quite as versatile as an analog thumbstick or whatever, but a very welcome return, and a very odd return in a handheld. And I say handheld, but this thing's got a 7-inch screen, so it's going to be like Switch sized almost, I guess. It's going to be a big thing. Which is good because obviously it has to fit all of those controls on it as well. It's also got a D-pad and yes, the aforementioned trackball as well, which of course many of us will remember from 1980s and 90s laptops. Very big. You can still get them. A lot of people still use them instead of a mouse. You have it on your desk, and you can use it to control your mouse cursor and stuff. But in this case, of course, it's to support all those wonderful old arcade games from Atari, which use the trackball controller, stuff like Missile Command and Centipede and stuff like that. So it's got all bases covered. It's a big thing. I don't think they've announced any games. They haven't announced a price or anything. They basically just sort of had it on static display. Show people basically what the hardware looks like. It just says that it comes with some pre-installed games, and that Yeah, 7-inch high-resolution screen, rechargeable battery built in, of course. I guess that'll recharge over USB-C. But not much information on that. Of course, My Arcade also make the Game Station thing, which is something that I do want to talk about as well. That's another recent Atari console that's passed me by, and some mini arcade machines and all sorts of stuff. So really cool looking project, and just something that I wanted to acknowledge because it's yet another new Atari, or at least Atari branded console, an officially licensed thing, and it's odd. It's odd. I like it. Anyway, let's take a moment to talk about me. Yes, this is all about me after all, because I'm fantastic and I love talking about myself. No, because I have a new video out this week on my main channel on Control-Alt-Reese, a video that's done amazingly well, and I'm really, really proud of it, and I'm very pleased with it, and it's one that's been quite a long time in the making, so it's really good, really promising start to 2024. And that video is my PC 9821. Which is a computer that I bought from Japan, from Bai, hashtag not sponsored. Obviously it works as a forwarding service for the Japanese auction sites like Yahoo Auctions, which is still really big over there. And I bought this thing, and it was very badly packaged, which is very unusual for stuff from Japan, but I've learnt my lesson, and I will be paying for the protective packaging in future. Although that said, I did buy a second one, as you'll see in the video, and that did have all the extra protective packaging, and that also got damaged. So yeah, unlucky there, I guess, but probably the only things I've ever bought from Bai that actually got damaged. So there you go. It's an interesting part of the story, and you can see how I actually fixed that damage in the video. But I also took the opportunity, so this is a longer video. This is getting on for half an hour long. And I also took the opportunity to talk about the history of the NEC PC88 and PC98 ranges of computers, and how they started with the 8001 and the 6001, and the 8801, 9801. I'm just saying numbers now, but and these were machines that I knew absolutely nothing about. Of course, I knew they were weird and Japanese and made by NEC, and that they were quite well known for sort of their graphics and sound, and being sort of early pioneers in the Japanese gaming scene. But that was it really. It was just kind of a passing familiarity. I kind of assumed that they were just PCs, but the Japanese version of PCs, so not quite compatible, but basically. But apparently that's not the case. PC88 was Z80 based, the same as the Spectrum, for example. So very much an 8-bit machine, but with a very sort of sophisticated graphics chip on board for reasons. Those reasons being the Japanese language and how complicated it is to actually render, and of course that kind of graphical power being used for games, as people do. And how that relates to the PC98, which I assumed was like a sequel or a follow-up to the 88, but it turns out that they were actually sold pretty much. It was only released a year later, and they were sold alongside each other, and one was kind of targeted at home users and one was targeted at business users, and they actually both ended up becoming quite sort of legendary games machines. But yeah, just a really fascinating story. Obviously, don't have to go over it all again here. The video's there if you want to go and watch it. I'm sure most of you have probably already watched it. I think the cool thing about this video is just how well it's done, and like I say, I'm really impressed with that. I'm really pleased with that. So just looking at the overview in YouTube Studio, this did 5,000 views in its first 24 hours, which is a new record for my channel. Really, really cool to see. Like I say, it was a huge amount of work to put it together, so it's nice that that's kind of paid off. And obviously January is kind of a quieter month for YouTube anyway, because all the big guys are worked themselves to death in December, chasing all the ad revenue from all the people trying to flog stuff for Christmas. And the advertisers also, they cut right back on spending in January, and those bigger guys kind of stopped putting out videos. So for people like me who are kind of looking to get our faces out there and get our names out there and kind of grow our channels, really good time to get some stuff out. Not a great time for ad revenue, but that's not why I do it. So yeah, 5,000 views in 24 hours. It says here views are up 46%. I don't have any sort of past statistics to compare that to. And this video, if I look at the reach, has been shoved in front of 76,000 people's faces. And apparently 4.7% of them have clicked through thanks to my thumbnail there. Little tiny bit of trickery on the thumbnail, I'll say. I did boost the saturation and the contrast a little bit on the more yellowed machine, just to make it look a little bit more yellow. But actually, it is very yellow, and you'll see that in the video, so it's not all that deceptive. It's just I didn't cover it in mud or anything like that, so I hope you can forgive me for that. And I think the retention on this one is very strong. So the amount of people actually watching the video through to the end, it says here it's 58%. which is after the first 30 seconds, but then it actually sort of continues at that level as like a flat line across to the end. So I actually didn't lose, many of those initial viewers over the course of the video, which meant it was a very engaging video. And I'm always really pleased to see a retention graph like that, particularly once it's reached quite a high number of views like this. So really, really promising feedback on this video. I've had a lot of good comments. There was some debate. Around the level of IBM compatibility of this machine. I think the PC98 range is known for being sort of IBM compatible, but not. And obviously, people are kind of under the impression that that was kind of the case throughout the machine's lifetime, when actually this much later machine is much more kind of, especially as it runs Windows 95 and you've got that extra level of abstraction between the hardware and the software, and you can just run Windows 95 software on it. So for all intents and purposes, it is basically just a PC. But of course, it isn't. The term IBM compatible has a lot of sort of connotations to do with hardware being at specific memory addresses and stuff like that when it comes to running just basic vanilla DOS. So there's been a little bit of discussion around that, but to be fair, out of a whole half an hour video, if it's just one kind of off the cuff comment that I made at one point in the video, if that's the biggest nitpick that people can come up with, and like I say, it's not really a nitpick, it's just kind of a talking point, then that's cool. That's very good. Evidently, goes to show that I've done my homework on that one. So and all the research that I did was worth it. So. Very cool. That really pleased with that video. Please do go and check it out if you haven't seen it yet. I think you'll find it very interesting viewing. I hope you do. And yeah, great start to the year. I hope that's a sign of things to come for 2024 for the Control-Alt-Reese channel. So if you're listening to this, or indeed watching this on YouTube, you're probably a fan of old computers, as I am, because that's what I cover on my channel, mainly old computers and old games consoles to a lesser extent. And yeah, when it comes to old computers, I think they don't get much older than this. And it was really cool to see this in the news again this week. So this is to do with Colossus at the National Museum of Computing. In Bletchley Park, of course. Bletchley Park during World War II played a really big part in intercepting and decrypting enemy communications, and a big part of that was Colossus, the world's first electronic computer, which was of course designed and built specifically for the purpose of breaking those encrypted messages, and it did, and apparently helped to shorten the war as a result, which is good. Obviously it saved it a lot of hassle, and yeah, basically, you can go and see this thing. It actually works. I'm not quite sure how often they run it. I have been down, and I don't think it was up and running the day that I was there. This was before I had my YouTube channel, so I didn't make a video about it. But they certainly do run it on specific days and keep it maintained and stuff, which is really cool considering the age of this thing. I mean, this thing dates back to the early 1940s, before microchips and transistors and the rest of it. So it's all valve based. I think it was built around like phone exchange technology, I think, if I've got my story right. But the story's all here on the National Museum of Computing website, and of course I will link to that. But the new development with this, which was really cool this week, which was, I actually spotted this on the BBC News website, is that GCHQ, the intelligence military intelligence people here, have declassified some old pictures, some old photos of it actually in operation way back in the day. Of course, this was a big military secret back in the day. We couldn't let them know that we actually had this technology. And I'm glad they've saved it until 2024, because you wouldn't want this falling into the wrong hands. this sophisticated code-breaking technology. But I mean, you laugh, but it was really revolutionary in its day. And it's just nice to see how it was set up back when it was actually being used. And we've got the actual operators here operating the computer. It used paper tape and stuff in combination with all the good old-fashioned switches and knobs and things that you'd expect. Operated by women, of course, because all the men were out at war at the time, as everything that was kind of run in this country at the time. Which is really, it's nice to see. It's nice to see an old picture of that and just kind of see it acknowledged. Members of the Women's Royal Navy Service, of course, the Wrens, as they were famously known. Not only actually operating the machine, but also maintaining it as well. Dealing with the day-to-day running of it. Of course, this thing's massively complex, and it is, valve technology and stuff. I mean, it must have broken down all the time, and it was essential to the war effort to keep this thing running. So, my hat's off to these people for their sort of contribution to all of that. Really nice to see the pictures, and they've also released diagrams of block diagrams of how the actual machine worked and how it all fit together as well. So really cool, a really good story here on the BBC News website, just covering the history of it a little bit. Like I say, there's a bit more on the National Museum of Computing website, which I'll also link in the usual places. But yeah, cool to see, a very important part of our computing history, and nice to see some more information and pictures of that coming out after all these years. And that's all I have for this week's Ramble. Thank you ever so much for joining me once more. I can't believe another week has gone by and we're 1 week closer to the year-long unbroken streak. I wonder how many of you have been with me since the very beginning. Maybe let me know down in the comments, or via Spotify, apparently. If you're desperately holding on for the next 3 weeks to see if I make it to my 1 year streak. I'm actually going away as well, so I'm kind of working out how best to handle that. So it might be quite an interesting episode right at the end of it all. But we'll see how that pans out. I would hate for it to be some kind of disappointment of a 2-minute thing into a handheld mic, just saying, yeah, sorry guys, I'm away this week, so I can't do a proper episode. Oh, by the way, it's been a whole year. That's not how you end a streak, is it? We need to go out in style, and we need a party and a celebration. And on that note, there was just something, just a little food for thought that I kind of wanted to talk about, and just kind of have a little think about. And if you're a regular viewer of this, a regular viewer of my channel, you might be familiar with my friend Sam. In fact, there's a picture of him on the wall behind me when we used to be in a band together, which I've actually made part of my set. And he was in my Christmas special video 2022. Didn't do one in 2023 because I was trying to take things a little bit more seriously and couldn't really come up with a good concept and stuff. But he was in that video where we drank a lot of wine. It was quite amusing. Helped me to get this place set up. He is involved with the landlord and the IT company and all the other stuff. And earlier this week, he gave me a present. And I was wondering if anyone else had kind of come across this thing. So it is this. It's called Impossibrew, and it's an alcohol-free beer. Now, I'm not doing dry January as such, but I do always drink a bit too much in December, and I do tend to cut it right back in January. I'm not a big drinker anyway, but people doing the alcohol-free thing. I don't usually drink alcohol-free beer. If I drink beer, it's as a social thing to get a bit tipsy and stuff, and if I'm not drinking to get drunk, I'll just have a cup of tea or something. To be honest, I'm kind of boring like that. But I was very interested to see this, particularly on the social side of things, because it apparently has these nootropic, I'm going to say drugs. I don't know if drugs is the right word. Herbs. They call it their social blend, and it's got L-theanine, ashwagandha, which I think is some kind of like root or bark or something from Africa, and vitamin B1. And apparently, herbs, that's a good word, nootropic herbs, that's called, or nootropic, is it? Herbs. And our social blend aims to replace alcohol with a relaxing drinking experience that's totally alcohol-free. And it's supposed to sort of loosen you up and make you relaxed and make you more sociable and that kind of stuff, like alcohol does. And I drank this. I just had the one, and I drank it while I was playing Talos Principle 2, actually. And yeah, I don't know. Not quite sure what to make of it, really. I think it had some kind of effect, although whether that's like a placebo effect or what, I don't know. Maybe you need to drink a lot more of them to get the promised effects. But apparently this is a big thing. I was kind of vaguely aware of it, I guess. But yeah, apparently this was a thing and was on Dragon's Den and all of that. I just thought it sounded quite interesting. So yeah, has anyone else tried this? Is anyone going to go out and try it now as a result of me talking about it? Tasted a bit weird, the beer, I must say. Had the pale ale. I do like an ale, but very very kind of herbal, I guess. Not unpleasant, but just different. But there you go. That's a thing, and of course I will link to that as well. So that's all I've got for you this week. If you wanted a talking point to talk about down in the comments, that's the best I can come up with. So I'm off to film another video, hopefully about Atari consoles, if I don't run out of time and get interrupted, as that seems to keep happening today. Thank you ever so much, of course. Big shout out to Sam, who will be listening to me in the shower like he always does. Hello, Sam. I hope the Christmas party went well and that you're not too hungover. And yeah, that's all I got. So bye.